Welcome everyone to another episode of Pop Rant Radio, the podcast where two pop culture junkies discuss popular and sometimes not so popular culture. My name is Moss, I'm one of your hosts, and with me as always is my good friend and co-host, Eric. How are you today, sir?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing alright. So Eric, what was your favorite movie as a child?
I don't know. Gosh, I don't remember. I liked a lot of Disney films as a kid.
Okay.
I think one of my favorite ones would probably have to be either like Toy Story or maybe Five Goes West.
Ooh, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Lazy Eye.
You just freaking turn left for 2 seconds. They're right there. Pay attention. But no, that one, and then it was Five Goes West and then American Tail, or was it?
American Tail was the first one.
Yeah.
Five Goes West was the second one.
Which is the one where they sing out the window with a violin.
Yeah, the American Tail was kind of depressing.
Yes.
It reminds me a lot of All Dogs Go to Heaven, which was really fucking weird.
Oh, yeah.
So American Tail was kind of like darker, and then Five Goes West was more like lighthearted.
Yeah. Yeah, I liked a lot of that. Land Before Time was another big one.
Yes. 1 through 27.
Yep.
I've only seen the first one.
27, Chomper goes to
The funeral.
dental school. To the funeral for Littlefoot, who he's eaten.
That's the whole entire title. Chomper goes to a funeral, in parentheses, for Littlefoot, in brackets, who he's eaten.
Of whom he has eaten.
Oh.
Also, Spike is there.
Also, Spike is there.
And not Spike the dinosaur, but Cowboy Bebop Spike.
Also, Spike is there. Like, it's not even grammatically correct.
It's just like, there's no picture on the front either. It's just this incredibly long title.
Just blank white slate.
Don
Bluth presents, yes.
At the very bottom.
Awesome. So today's topic is going to be movies that...
you don't want me to ask you?
No. Go ahead.
So those are some of mine. What's some of yours?
So probably one of my favorite movies when I was a kid was Batman '89 and Superman 1978. I remember watching both of those a lot. I also like Disney movies as well. For whatever reason, I remember watching Pocahontas a lot. I don't think it's a particularly good Disney movie. Like, it's fine.
Its music's fine. The color's great.
For whatever that you could paint with all the colors of the wind.
Yep. Especially red, because they killed a lot of Native Americans in that movie.
Is that a racist thing, or is that a blood thing?
No. Jesus. Oh, boy. That's definitely not what Disney intended.
Oh, man. Anyway, so today's topic is movies that we loved as kids. Movies that we enjoyed as kids. Maybe they're still good. Maybe they hold up. Maybe not so much.
Yep.
We'll talk about them.
There's a couple that don't.
So, do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. So a big movie I watched as a kid was Page Master.
Ooh, Macaulay Culkin.
Yes. And apparently a ton of other people, we just found out. And it's kind of weird because every time I think about this movie, I think about another movie being The Brave Little Toaster. I watched a lot of these films next to each other over and over again, which is kind of funny because one is horrible and one is good. I'm going to talk about the horrible one. All right, so Page Master, for those of you that don't know, is about a snot-nosed little brat, played by Macaulay Culkin. It's a fitting role. And he is, like, coming home from a storm, and he, like, takes refuge in, like, this library, and he, like, does acid, and all
Apparently.
The colors bleed.
According to the plot description, he does acid.
Christopher Lloyd's like, hello, little boy. If you want to exit, you got to go through the other side. And it's like, all right, cool.
Right, so Macaulay Culkin goes into a library.
Yep, and like he like goes in like this dream world kind of thing because he hates books. Books are terrible.
Which is weird because he's kind of does he hate books? Because he's really nerdy in the beginning of the movie. Yeah, he's really nerdy,
but he refuses. I remember that he like specifically like
maybe he's scared of books.
Christopher Lloyd comes up to him and he's like, "Hey, you want a book?" And he's like, "No, I don't want books." Just like that. That's how he
Fuck you, Doc Brown.
Right. Call me up with fucking Marty McFly. Get out of here. So he then meets 3 anthropomorphic books, which we got a really good laugh out of the third one.
Yes.
The first one is an adventure book, a pirate-style book played by Patrick Stewart. The second one is a horror... No.
Back up.
The second one is a fairy tale book played by Whoopi Goldberg. And the third one is a horror book played by Frank Welker. The horror book is listed as a hunch book with a tilted spine.
Zing, 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 book jokes.
all kinds of book jokes at the cost of people who actually have this impairment.
I actually really like that joke when you read it in the story synopsis.
Well, because I didn't expect it. It kind of just showed up out of nowhere. So the big thing is it's very much kind of like Wishbone. And we're going to talk about Wishbone here. Another thing I loved as a child. Wishbone was a dog that, like, he always like told me stories.
I love how you're explaining a unknown pop culture reference with another unknown pop culture
reference. Shut up! Everyone knows Wishbone. Wishbone was a series where they would talk about stories, and when they would talk about stories, they would actually like go into them and everything like that. So he, in trying to escape this library, which I don't know what this movie's message is now, come to think of it. Don't go to libraries because they're evil.
Because you'll have to get out.
And Christopher Lloyd's going to kill you? I don't know. Like, what?
Is it Christopher Lloyd from Dennis the Menace? Because I totally would believe that.
No, it's Christopher Lloyd from Suburban Commando.
He was frozen today.
He's not going to run those red lights, dude. No one's going to get that show.
People watch The Nostalgia Critic. They know.
Oh, they might catch from that, yeah, but no one's watched Suburban Commando. So, I don't remember Dick. His name's Dick.
Richard.
Richard, adventure, fairy tale,
and
horror are like, they're trying to get out. So they start to go through these famous stories.
Yeah, it's like an Alice in Wonderland type situation. So. Yeah.
He starts to meet famous characters like Long John Silver, Merlin the Magician, Captain Ahab. So I remember the big scene that really caught me was the boat scene, you know, because Patrick Stewart goes apeshit because it's a boat.
I'm nodding my head like I remember.
Oh, you do remember. I want to go back to Wishbone.
I've seen this movie once, and I remembered. The only thing I remember from this movie is seeing a trailer for it where the sword comes down and Macaulay Culkin catches it, and that doesn't happen in the movie.
No, he never gets the sword.
That's the only thing I remember about this movie.
He literally, like, the book has the sword. Adventure has the sword.
Right.
Like, no one else has the sword. Fairy's got a wand. I, for some reason, don't remember horror. He was clearly not memorable. I remember the pirate and I remember the fairy. But long story short, God, it sucked. It was kind of neat because, you know, they're going through books and everything. But what kid at the age of, I don't know what this was intended for, like 8? What 8-year-old's going to go read Moby Dick?
I mean, you know.
Like, put him in, like, Huck Finn, you know, or Tom Sawyer. Or, I don't know, Peter Cottontail. Something.
Peter Cottontail.
Like, have him hang out with someone else. On the flip side of this coin, the other movie that I watched a lot alongside this movie was The Brave Little Toaster, which is actually kind of a hidden gem.
It's pretty good.
Like, it's not...
The first one.
Yes, not Little Toaster Goes to Mars, which sounds like a fake movie. It's really good. It's a bunch of household appliances find out one day that their owner is gone, right? The big thing is that he's moving and he's coming back for them.
Right, and the household items are anthropomorphic if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, they come to life. It's a toaster, a heating blanket, a vacuum, a lamp, a radio. I think that's it.
We'll go with that.
Yes, and the oven.
And the oven.
Oven's scary. And like they travel, it's an adventure movie. They go on a long trip.
It's very similar to Toy Story, actually.
Yeah, it very much so. But the characters are likable. Mm-hmm. There's funny jokes. There's peril. Like it's really good, and the music's
really good.
I can still, like we were talking about beforehand. When I was in high school, I remember still stumbling upon the rock and roll song from the Junkyard. It's super catchy.
Yes,
and it's a good movie. It's got a good ending. Skip every other one that comes out afterwards. I think there's 3 of them. Watch Little Toaster. Do not watch Page Masters.
Nice. So the first movie that I want to talk about today is Spaced Invaders.
The Atari game.
Yes, the Atari game. The movie. Spaced Invaders was a family-friendly comedy that came out in 1990, and I actually really love the premise. So the whole idea of the movie is it takes place in this little town in Illinois called Big Bean, I think. Sure. And the main character is this 10-year-old girl. It's actually the girl from Jurassic Park, the older sister.
Okay.
This was her first movie. And her dad is the new...
She's a hacker, you know.
Her dad is the new sheriff in town.
Okay.
And they just moved here because the guy's wife, her mom, died recently. It's like the subtext for, classic story like...
Oh, yeah. One parent has to be dead.
Right, exactly.
It's the quota of any movie made before the 2000s.
They moved to the small town to get away from things.
Yep.
And the movie takes place on Halloween.
Okay.
The local radio station decides to play Orson Welles' The War of the Worlds over the radio. So meanwhile, in space, Martians, like alien Martians, they've traveled to like this other system where they're waging a war with other aliens.
Okay.
And the war hasn't been going so well with this one particular like group in the fleet, that these Martians, and they have like the highest casualty count or whatever. So like the Martian Council has put these robots which look like a cross between a jellyfish and Darth Vader. They put these robots in this part of the fleet ships to like keep them in line, like keep them in check. All right. So then this a lot of backstory, I know. Trust me.
No, you're good.
It's getting there. So then we have our ragtag group of Martians who are on their own like Millennium Falcon style ship. Think like Serenity, like Firefly.
Okay.
It's these 5 aliens. One's basically Michelangelo from Ninja Turtles. One's a scientist. One is like this gung ho, like let's kill everything. One is the pilot who is doing his best Jack Nicholson impression, and then one is the captain. And then
are we sure it's not Jack Nicholson?
It's definitely not Jack Nicholson. So they get a distress beacon from the rest of the Martians that, hey, there's a battle going on, like get over here quick. So they're currently like flying through an asteroid field, and when they get out of the asteroid field, they have like their little communication picker-upper thing, like radar thing or whatever you call it, like antenna, like communication antenna. And they're searching for the signal, and they pick up the broadcast of War of the Worlds. So the aliens, the Martians, think, oh, the battle's taking place on Earth. So they land on Earth, and when they get there, since they're like little 4 feet tall Martians, but it's Halloween night, so as they're walking around,
so they fit right in.
Everybody thinks they're just kids in Halloween costumes. And so it's kind of got like an interesting premise, like a kind of a cute setup. And like I said, it's a very family-friendly movie. Like it's rated PG. There's like a little bit of language because this was...
There's always...
1990, 90s. Yeah. So before like everything got really bad. So the Martians, they end up running into the girl, the main character, and they're all like, we're going to destroy everyone. But all the adults are kind of just like, oh, you little kids. They end up getting mixed up in like this big hoopla about the rest of the town. Eventually finds out, oh, they really are aliens, and the town is like a bunch of these like stereotypical like hillbilly characters. So they all load up in their pickup trucks with shotguns and go after them. And the little girl and her father end up having to help the aliens, they'll help the Martians like get back to their ship, repair their ship, and get off the planet before everybody kills them. And it's funny. It's got some good jokes in it. Like, again, it's a very kid-friendly movie. But I watched it earlier this morning before we did this podcast. And I was surprised how well it actually holds up.
Sounds kind of like Destroy All Humans.
Yeah, it is. Like, they actually look like the alien from Destroy All Humans. Like, they're stereotypically like green and have big heads and antenna. The entire movie is on YouTube right now, so you can YouTube it and watch it.
YouTube, don't hate us.
But yeah, I ended up really enjoying it, even after watching it so many years later.
So another one that I think has really, really aged well with me is The Labyrinth.
Starring David Bowie's crotch.
Yes. And those balls. But no, it was like a group, like a Destiny group made together of Jim Henson, George Lucas, and David Bowie.
Right, because Lucasfilm, our Industrial Light and Magic, did all of the special effects.
Right.
Jim Henson Workshop did all the puppetry, and then David Bowie on music, which
well
is awesome.
Yeah, yes. The music is so good.
Jareth, the Goblin King.
He's ridiculous, and I love it. So the plot is kind of like the coming of age plot, so it's a little generic, but essentially our lead woman...
This is probably the movie people will be most familiar with, yeah. So Jennifer Connelly is really young in this movie. She's like she's 13, 14, something like that.
She might have been like... I think that's how older character is too. Yeah, it's actually pretty square on.
She's at the dawn of womanhood. That's the metaphor.
So she is Sarah. That's a really fucking weird way.
She is Sarah.
Our lead character.
Just say Jennifer Connelly. You're never gonna remember Sarah.
I'm not. So Jennifer Connelly is a teenager in angst, right?
Right.
And she comes home after practicing Shakespeare in the Park or something. I don't remember. Her parents are like, you gotta watch Toby. Your little brat brother, he sucks. And she's like, okay.
That's actually verbatim the line in the
That's
film.
what they say. Like every teenager, she doesn't want to waste her Friday night. I think it's either Friday or Saturday. She doesn't waste her night with. I know it doesn't matter.
Important details.
She doesn't want to waste her night watching her baby brother, right? So she gets really pissed and picks him up, and she's like, "Hey, Goblin King, I hope you come and take my brother."
Right. She like wishes him away.
You know, like a normal teenage girl does, like by praying to the goblins. I mean, I guess it is technically...
I think it's like a legend in the movie or something.
Well, but it's a Shakespeare reference, I believe.
Oh, okay.
So, Toby's gone. And she's like, what the hell happened? She gets teleported into Labyrinth World. I don't know what it's called.
Let's go with it.
Okay.
Again, it's another very Alice in Wonderland type of situation.
Yeah, and she is being antagonized by a very handsome, very attractive, very beautiful David Bowie.
Very bulgy David Bowie.
Yes, who is in a unitard-looking thing. And Jesus, the hair.
It's awesome.
Ridiculously great. So David Bowie, Jareth, the Goblin King, takes Toby to his castle, and he's like, hey, look, you reached my castle. You know, you can have your brother back. But you have... He gives, like, a weird time limit for it. So she's got to get through this giant labyrinth. And, like, the labyrinth has a bunch of... It's really kind of gorgeous, too.
It is.
It feels like...
The production design in the movie is fantastic.
Yeah, it feels and looks like a Star Wars set, you know? Like, everything looks super realistic, and the creatures in it look really realistic, which is Jim Henson, of course.
Yeah, and everything has a consistent feel and theme to it. Like, it feels like it's an embodiment of this other world.
Right. I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's really good.
And then she runs across, you know, a series of characters that help her out. First one she runs into is a character named Hoggle, who's a piece of shit and, like, sucks. He's terrible. But at the end, he redeems himself, so it's whatever. And, like, he helps her get through parts of the labyrinth, and, you know, there's a lot of riddles and stuff, and she's got a...
Then there's the giant, like, pink beast guy.
Yes, who is, like, a total wuss, and she finds him getting, like, bullied.
Yeah.
And then there's the squirrel with...
I've seen this movie one time, like 9 years ago, so I'm gonna take your word for it.
It's like this like squirrel fox thing, and it's got like a spear.
Oh, I remember him.
He's really gung ho.
Yes,
and he rides her dog.
Yeah, he's like a little sarcastic and like clever.
Yeah, he's kind of like the sassy like.
Yeah, he's the comic
Englishman.
relief essentially.
So she gets like this ragtag group of people, and you know they're gonna head to this castle, and they're gonna take it on. Like that's the big goal, and it is cutting back and forth between her and David Bowie, who's playing with Toby.
He's just being creepy around a little baby.
Right, but he's also just being endearing, and he's just holding him and bouncing him, and it's like, are we sure we want to take him away? Because he's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, and also Jennifer Connelly has dreams here and there about her like going to a ball and dancing with David Bowie.
Yeah, and that seems really weird.
Yeah, again, like they're really hammering home the metaphor of she's coming of age, she's like turning into a woman, so the sexual undertones play very heavily in the movie.
Which is really uncomfortable in a couple parts.
Yeah, it's David Bowie.
Especially the part where she gets to the riddles, and she gets it wrong, and they drop her in the floor, and there's just, like, millions of hands.
Yeah, the hands all come out and, like, grab onto her.
Which scared the crap out of me when I was a kid. Like, I don't know why, but it just was terrifying. Like, nightmares. And plus, now if you watch it, it looks really uncomfortable to just see all these weird hands grabbing onto this 14-year-old Jennifer Connelly.
Yes, and another part that's really creepy is when they have the like the long-legged puppet-looking things like dancing around. And there's that song that's playing, and it's kind of got like that bad blue screen going on, but it's very charming.
But at the time, it was not so charming.
Right. I mean, but it's cool because the movie, even though it's this kid's story, it's kind of got this dark edge to it that a lot of kids' films don't have nowadays. And I think
it's very consistent of the time.
Yeah, that was a big
that.
thing in the 80s, 90s,
Yeah.
Which I really, really enjoy.
Oh, yeah.
The movie has an edge to it that is just not present anymore, and that's something that I always look towards.
Right, and it's like this really, really... And the big thing is how interesting this world is.
Mm-hmm.
And every time she, like, rounds a corner, like, you're more or less, like, half worried, but half, like, excited about, like, what's she going to run into.
Right.
One of the scenes that I remember the most is when she runs into, like, the dump lady. Like, it's, like, this woman that, like, runs the dump, and she even, like, sends her back to her room, and she's like, oh, everything's fixed. And she, like, opens the door, and it's just like, nope, you're still fucked. Welcome back.
Verbatim line of the movie.
But like the big thing, especially like so when I was a kid, I was like, this character's really weird, mystifying. This woman in the dump, and like going back and watching it now, I'm like mesmerized by how good her puppetry is. Like she is huge. She just looks great. Like
Yeah.
it's amazingly well made.
Again, the production design on this movie is just absolutely fantastic.
Oh yeah, and we're not even getting to the best part, which is the damn music. Like
Yes.
Magic Dance is fantastic. I don't remember the titles of any other song.
You don't need to. You
Nope.
just need to know Magic Dance.
You just know Magic Dance. However, the song where her and David Bowie dance is also fantastic, as well as the final confrontation song is really good too. Another weird thing that David Bowie does throughout the whole movie, which is really weird but entrancing, is stuff that he does with crystal balls.
Yeah, he has like that crystal ball that he like floats around and mesmerizes
He does
Jennifer
like this weird
Connelly
thing where
with.
he like just moves his hand back and forth like he's waving, and it's like rotating up and down his hand, which is clearly he's not doing that because it'd fall like immediately.
But he's magic, Eric.
That's
He's
true.
the Goblin King.
So she eventually gets to the palace, and Hoggle Boggle like fucks her over, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I tried not to poison you," and like he's just
I just did a really bad job of it.
right, like he's helping the Goblin King, and then he doesn't, and like then they're best friends again. She's like, "I forgive you, Hoggle." He's like, "Okay, cool," and then she gives him a kiss.
And everybody's happy.
Right, and then she has the baby, and
except for the parents who come home because they still have two shitty kids.
Right, but the big thing that I remember from this movie, like towards the end, is just the really cool like final confrontation with David Bowie. The final confrontation between Sarah and David Bowie is in this. It's clearly inspired by M.C. Escher's painting Relativity, which is the painting where like the staircases are going all over the place, and it's the big like it looks correct from every angle but wrong from every angle.
Right.
And it's really cool because he is in complete control and she has no control, and he's like walking on walls, and he does that really cool thing where he's like walking underneath her and then he just like steps up.
Yeah.
And it was just like, this is really cool.
It's some Inception shit before Inception.
Right. And there might not be a lesson learned from him, but in the end she's like, hey, I love my brother Toby. He's great, I guess. But the weirdest thing is like she goes back to her house and like all the monsters join her and they like wreck her room and they dance the magic dance. Like, do her parents not hear this?
Well, it's the credits song. Nothing has to make sense.
Right. But overall, like, it's a movie that's aged very, very well. Being someone that really liked David Bowie growing up, it's even fun to go back and watch, just him act.
Right.
As a kid, it might be a little too intimidating at times, maybe a little scary for younger kids, but
that's a good thing.
I watched it.
Yeah, it's a dark fantasy children's movie, and it's very successful at what it's trying to do.
And it's never too scary.
No.
So it's a great film for kids, but it's also, I think it's perfectly fine for adults at this point too.
It is an entertaining, family-friendly flick.
Yep.
That was a lot of alliteration.
It was. It's a lot better than Pagemaster. Don't mention
it. There's no alliteration there at all.
Pungent Pagemaster.
So another putrid Pagemaster. So another movie that I watched all the time as a kid, which I would be surprised if anyone besides me has seen this movie. It's called George's Island. It was made by a Scandinavian production company.
Yeah, no one's seen it.
Yeah, it was made in like Nova Scotia. So the movie opens with these pirates. Takes place in pirate times. I don't remember the exact year.
Okay.
Unspecified pirate times.
Is it not modern time?
No, it's not. But Captain Kidd and his crew of pirates are going out to George's Island in Nova Scotia to bury their ill-gotten gains, their booty, their treasure. So they go out to this island, they go out to the middle of it, and they dig a hole, and they put the treasure in, and then Captain Kidd says, okay, someone has to stay and stand guard over the treasure, which apparently means you have to die, and your ghost stands guard over the treasure. None of Captain Kidd's crew volunteers until Captain Kidd goes over to like one of the younger, like newer recruits, and he's like, hey, I think his name is also George, I think. And he's like, "Hey, everybody's named George in this movie."
Yes, except for Captain Kidd.
Right. So he goes and he's like, "Oh, laddie, do you want to stand guard over the treasure?" And he's like, "I'll do it, Captain Kidd." And he goes, "Okay, good." And he shoots him and pushes his body in the hole with the treasure. And everybody,
what an asshole.
Right? He's a total dick. And then so all the other pirates are like, "All right, let's go."
Dude, you shot a kid.
And Captain Kidd, I mean, he's like 20 or something. That's a more
realistic response to this.
Well, they're pirates. They're mean. So the other pirates are like, "Oh, okay, let's go." And Captain Kidd's like, "You know what's better than one man guarding the treasure?"
Oh, no.
And he kills everybody. He kills the entire crew. He does it with like one of the other guys, like his first mate, and his first mate's like, "All right, we got him." And Captain Kidd's like, "We sure did." And then he kills his first mate too. Like he kills everybody.
Does he then kill himself?
No, he does not kill himself.
He was like, "Well, they need a captain."
No, he does not kill himself. But he has this really it's funny because I think this movie is actually fairly well written for what it is.
Right.
He has this line that I've always remembered since I was a little kid. And he like takes out his flask and he drinks it. And as he's walking away, he says, "Gold is thicker than friendship," as he like walks away.
There's no yo-ho.
There's no yo-ho. So that's like the cold open of the movie. And then it goes forward to modern times being like
93.
No, it's like 1986 or 7, wherever the movie takes place. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so it's modern, quote unquote, Nova Scotia. And we get introduced to the main character.
Also George.
Who's also named George, actually. And he's like maybe 12 years old, something like that.
Okay.
He lives with his grandfather.
Also George.
I don't remember his grandfather's name, but it's not George.
It's Georgie.
His parents are dead, presumably. The movie doesn't specify. But he lives with his grandfather. And they live in this like fishing town, this like on the coast town.
Okay.
He goes to school, and his teacher's like this total like crab apple. Her name is Miss. She's single. That's important.
Ooh.
Yeah. Her name is
Miss.
Miss.
Look at that Billy the Kid.
Her name is Miss Birdman. Miss Birdman.
Let's play with Michael Keaton.
And her classroom is like decorated with all bird imagery, and she gives like grades to her kids in the form of calling them different birds. So she makes like George is kind of like outspoken and doesn't really like Miss Birdman.
Uh-huh.
So she's
like, "Caw, you gotta see."
No, it's worse. She has like this big thing above her board that has all these different birds listed on them. And then there's another girl in class named Bonnie, who's like really intelligent.
Okay.
And she's like, "Oh, Bonnie, you answered this question correctly. You're going to move up to Eagle.
Here's a finch.
And George, you're a dick, so I'm going to move you down to Dodo." Like Dodo is the lowest rank.
They're extinct.
So the plot of the movie is Miss Birdman is convinced that George has a bad home life because of his behavior. So she asks Bonnie to like go home with George after school one day.
Oh.
Right. It's really weird. It's like weird adult syndrome. So Bonnie goes up to George, and the movie tries to hint at the fact that like George kind of likes Bonnie, but he's like doing the whole "I'm a young boy and I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm kind of mean to you." Yeah.
Tongue out and everything.
So George takes Bonnie back to his house while his grandfather's there, introduces her to the grandfather, and then meanwhile, like the B plot is there's these bully kids that are constantly coming out to George's grandfather's house where they have like a sailboat, and they keep trying to like mess with the sailboat. So the grandfather like pours like salt or whatever into his shotgun and like shoots at them to like scare them away. Yeah. That's pretty much where it goes. So like Bonnie goes back to
she goes back and tells the teacher
yes.
Grandpa's shooting
Yes.
kids?
So Bonnie goes back to Miss Birdman and is like George has a pet tarantula, and
where the hell did that come from?
And his grandfather drinks grog. He calls his drink grog. So the grandfather drinks. He's not like an alcoholic, but like he just has a drink.
He has a couple bottles a night.
And he shoots his gun at the local kids or whatever. So Miss Birdman goes to, this is really detailed, Miss Birdman goes to the principal of the school, whose name is Mr. Droonfield.
Someone
And
had a heyday with these names.
when she goes into his office, she explains to him, I have this kid, his name is George, and he clearly has a troubled home life. I think we need to get like social services involved. And it's made very clear very quickly that Mr. Droonfield has a crush on Miss Birdman.
Why?
And she's like this like razor thin, like think did you ever watch Cheers or Frasier?
Yes.
Okay.
You have not watched Wishbone.
Like Frasier's ex-wife Lilith, just
Okay.
like this kind of like stone cold, very
Like a twig.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But also very like drained of emotion. That's Miss Birdman.
She's like a cemetery.
Yeah, and then Mr. Droonfield is kind of just like this overweight, doofy guy. Just so you have an idea.
Classic 90s.
What's funny is, so do you remember the ghost expert in Ghost Dad?
Yes.
That's the grandfather.
Oh, really?
It's the same
Did he
actor.
pull out a lightsaber?
No, he does not pull out a fake lightsaber sound effect.
Did he show up from England?
No. But anyway, so that's the same actor.
Fantastic.
Not important. They get social services involved, and George gets taken from his grandfather, and he gets put into the foster care system.
Okay.
I know we started with pirates, and now we're at the foster care system.
Yeah, this is going really boring.
It comes back. Don't worry. So he gets taken. He gets taken from his grandfather and put into the foster care system. And so a detail I missed. So George's grandfather tells George like pirate stories all the time.
Okay.
He always tells him like these legends about pirates because his grandfather was like in the Navy when he was younger.
Oh, his grandfather was a pirate. He's
No,
fucking lying.
he was in the Navy. Now this is where the movie has like a really big continuity problem because George's grandfather is like telling the story about how he and the cook on the ship when he was in the Navy rowed out to George's Island because they saw the one of the watchers of the gold, like they saw that the image of a pirate like waving them towards the island, and the legend says that you can only find Captain Kidd's gold if the man in the red coat waves you towards it, like leads you towards it. So
that's not what they're supposed to do.
I know, but I'm
Kid gave them one job and they're fucking it up.
Look, this is just the way the movie is, okay?
Kid ain't gonna be happy.
So the legend is, you see the man in the red coat, he leads you to the gold. So they see they see Santa Claus essentially waving them towards the island. So that night they get on a little boat and they row out towards George's Island. And as they're rowing out there, they see Captain Kidd returning to his main ship, and all of his men are like, "Where's the gold and where's all our men?" He's like, they decided to stay and guard the gold. And all the pirates know, okay, that means you killed them. So the pirates like mutiny and kill Captain Kidd. Now, I don't know how the grandfather sees this because it's led you to believe that all the pirate stuff takes place like 200 years ago.
Right, I was gonna say,
and the grandfather, this happens like 40 years ago. That's a huge plot hole in the movie. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but I'm gonna keep going. So anyway, so that story becomes important for later. Ties back to the whole pirate stuff. George is in a foster home. His foster parents are garbage. Like, they're just the worst people ever. Their hobby is they sell wine. Like, they make their own wine. So
out of the tears of children.
Pretty much. So they make, like, the foster kids in their home, like, clean wine bottles. Like, that's all they give them to do. They give them a Bible, and they give them a bunch of wine bottles that they can clean. So when the foster mother leads George down to the basement where they keep the kids, there's 2 rooms.
Where they keep the kids?
Yeah, they keep them in like the basement, like behind locked cages. It's terrible.
That's wonderful.
So there's 2 rooms. There's number 1 and number 2, and the foster mother's like, we call you number 1 and number 2 because it got too hard to remember the kid's name. So now you're number 2. They don't even call him by his name.
That's good.
So
they're all George.
Number 1 is occupied, so they let George go into room number 2.
Okay.
George tries to communicate with the kid in number 1. There's like a little hole in the wall, and he's like, "Hello, number 1. My name's George. Who are you?" And number 1 gets like they shut the little hole, and they're like, "Oh, who is it?"
What a douche.
Right.
Is it Captain Kidd?
It's not Captain Kidd. That would be awesome. So anyway, so George goes back.
Somehow alive Captain Kidd.
George goes back to school, and he's trying to just like move on with his life. His grandfather is trying to get custody of him back.
Sure.
But then for whatever reason, like the grandfather gets threatened with like legal action if he pursues George, and they're eventually trying to find like an adoptive home for George. And the grandfather gets convinced like, okay, I guess it would be best if George went to live with an adoptive family because the grandfather like doesn't have any money and his house doesn't really have a lot of stuff.
All right.
Like he's not very well to do, so he's worried, okay, I'm not going to be able to provide for George. Then there's a Halloween party. All of my movies take place on Halloween, apparently. Who George and number one, who turns out to be Bonnie from earlier, she's also living in the foster home. And you're led to believe earlier that she's like all hoity-toity and has fancy, well-to-do parents.
Oh, so it's like the glass break.
Exactly. And then when you find out like, oh, Bonnie is in the foster home too, oh, they're equals, like they can be friends now or whatever. So they go to this Halloween party and the foster parents are like with them, but Bonnie and George are dressed up as like ghosts, like they have the crappiest like white sheet over, and they actually have like 1 and 2 in marker on their costumes.
Classic.
Well, the grandfather dresses up as like a giant eyeball. Oh, the grandfather's in a wheelchair. That's very important. I failed to mention that. The grandfather is in a wheelchair. So the grandfather dresses up as like this giant eyeball that he can like wheelchair around in, and he rescues Bonnie and George because they like slip away from the foster parents during like the Halloween party. And then George is like, where are we going to go? And the grandfather goes, we'll get on a boat and we'll stow away we'll escape from the foster parents and we'll get out of here and we'll go live a happy
where will
life.
they go?
And we'll take Bonnie with us. Well,
that's kidnapping.
The kids, the shitty bully kids or whatever, they drill holes in the boats like in the scene beforehand. So
what?
Exactly. So hey, the B plot comes back. So George and his grandfather and Bonnie, they all get in the boat and they're like, "Oh no, the boat, it's sinking. Well, we'll have to go to George's Island for the night until we can figure out what's going on."
Sure.
And the ghost of the cook from the previous story, who died, by the way, I forgot about that too.
Thank you
the cook died and never made it back when George's grandfather went out to George's Island originally.
Did George kill him? Did George's grandpa go, "Hey, someone's gonna need to protect this treasure that I just found"?
Nope. But the cook's ghost comes back and plugs the holes of the ship that they're in so they can make it to George's Island with his fingers. There's like ghost fingers.
I'm like giving like such a skeptical look.
This movie is so ridiculous. I love it. So they get to George's Island. Droonfield and Birdman also chase after the kids. They get to George's Island. Their little raft thing that they arrived on like flies away, and it's implied that the ghost took it away or whatever. Like George's,
she can really be a bird.
Right, George's Island is haunted.
Ooh.
So they find where the treasure is, and the legend, George knows this because his grandfather tells him all the stories.
Right, all the Georges know this.
Yes, the legend says that you can't speak while you're digging up a pirate's treasure. Otherwise, the guardians will hear you and come and kill you.
Won't they hear the shovels?
So Bonnie and George dig up the treasure, and Droonfield and Birdman roll up, and they start talking.
Dude, no.
So the pirate ghosts show up. And Captain Kidd's ghost shows up.
Dang.
And they're all together, and the pirates are like, all right, we're going to kill them all. And George is like, hey, wait a minute. You guys have been dead for a really long time. I bet you haven't tasted grog in a long time. So
I was kind of hoping you would be like, hey, we're not the ones that killed you. He's right there. And they all just like ghost kill Captain Kidd's ghost kill.
So that's coming.
Oh,
so they
right.
take the grog. George takes the grog and gives it to the pirates. And and Captain Kidd's like, I'm the captain. I get to drink first. And he drinks the grog.
I'm the captain now.
Somehow the ghost captain can drink the real grog. And then George is like, you want some more? And they're all like, oh, yeah. And he's like, the captain gets the second. So the captain drinks all of the grog.
Dude, kid's a dick.
Gets drunk and then falls over like into the hole with the treasure. And then the pirates are all like, oh, we didn't get any grog. Well, we can just kill these people and have fun that way. And George goes, hey, I tell you what, there's an adventure you can go on. There's a beautiful princess that lives at like 123 whatever street, which is the address of the foster parents. So the movie ends with the pirate ghost flying to the foster parents' house.
That's horrible.
And like fucking around with them.
He's killed them. George has said
he doesn't kill them. They just like dance around. They're like, "Ooh, we're having a good time." And then
they wake up
at the end of the movie. George's grandfather adopts him, and then Mr. Droonfield and Birdman, who are now in love, adopt Bonnie, and that's the end of the movie.
That's horrible. It's terrible. So wait, I don't know. George Island seems like a pretty good movie.
I loved it as a kid. Like, it's ridiculous.
It kind of sounds like like from the 90s, Nickelodeon did a lot of those like made-for-TV movies.
Yeah.
It sounds like it would be like one of those.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a made-for-TV movie,
Plus,
but
it's in Canada.
it's weird. It was clearly like a low-budget, third-rate production, but it's actually fairly well filmed and fairly well. Like the dialogue isn't too terrible. Like I would recommend it. It's also on YouTube, so you can watch the entire
Sweet.
thing. But it's not bad. Like I really enjoyed it when I was a kid.
Sounds fun.
Yo ho!
So let me set the stage for you. It's 1996. Here in America, we're pretty fucking boring. But on the horizon, from east of the sea, comes this glowing star, and it's Pokemon. And holy crap, does it take this, like, boom, it crushes American television. It, like, takes the country by storm. It's cards, it's video games, it's a TV show, it's freaking action figures, and I had all of it. Everyone else had all of it.
Would you say that you caught them all?
I did. No. That'd be so expensive. My mom would kill me. But, like, so Pokemon is huge. And I watched the TV show, like, religiously.
I was really into Pokemon for, like, the first year it was out. Like, I lived and breathed Pokemon.
Like, it was my biggest thing. It was, Charizard was my favorite, Nidoking. Like, I kept on changing, who was my favorite every week. And then the news comes, again from the East. There's a fucking movie, and here it comes. And it has a title that, for some reason, makes me feel like we missed the first one. And it is called, this is the full title, Pokemon, the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back. Pikachu's Adventure. Because there was a little mini episode for Pikachu before the movie.
Of course.
So, I was, like, ecstatic when this was announced. This was, like, a big fucking deal for me. I remember we went to the St. Charles movie theater, right? And they were sold out for, like, the first two shows when we got there. It was, like, a 1 o'clock and, like, a 3 o'clock. We're both sold out. But there was a 6 o'clock. And, like, we were there at, like, 12:30. And I waited there from 12:30 to 6 o'clock to see this damn movie, and it did not disappoint. But leading up to it, I remember, like, a bunch of stuff with it. Like, NSYNC did the music for, like, one of the parts of it. There was, like, a CD that was coming out with, like, all these different pop bands doing, like, music with it. It was huge on WB. It was advertised, like, every other show. Like, it was enormous. And I remember watching it and, like, loving it. And to this day, I still love it. Like, it's not great. But it's still Pokemon, the first movie, Mewtwo Strikes Back, and Pikachu's Adventure. It's amazing. So the movie starts with a short. And we have to talk about the short because the short is 100% there to advertise the next games, right? So the short features Ash and the gang, and they're like, oh man, being a Pokemon trainer sure is tiring. Hey, yo, Pikachu, go and relax. Like, so they send all their guys out, and, like, all the Pokemon are out, and it's like, oh, there they all are on the big screen. And, like, they go and have fun, and, like, Pikachu gets in a fight with, like, this rival gang
that are putting holes in people's boats.
Yes, and then plugging them back up with ghost Pokemon fingers. But, like, it's like this fight, right? And it's a Raichu and a Cubone, which are, like, we knew. Then there were these two other ones. Who's this blue one? This one looks like a dog. Like, who are these? As a kid, it was blowing my freaking mind, because here's these two dudes. We have no clue who they are. And I was like, oh my gosh, we wouldn't know who they were for, like, another year.
You were like, this is not in my Pokedex.
Right. I was like, I had my little, like, my strategy guide, like, in my pocket, and I was like, what number are they? They're not in the 151. I was freaking out. But it was super cool. And it's kind of cliche, and it's, like, they compete, and they're assholes to each other. It's super trippy if you watch it, because they do, like, these transitions. And, like, the transitions are, like, really creepy, and it's just, like, weird, like, droning music, and, like, and then just cuts to another scene. It's really creepy. But it's a classic story. Like, it's these two teams fighting. Charizard gets really in a lot of trouble. His head gets stuck in, like, this giant, like, vase-looking thing, right? And all the Pokemon friends gotta help pull him out, because they're all friends now. So they all pull him out, and that's it. It's over. And I'm, like, sweating at this point. Edge of my seat, gripping my Sprite in my right hand, and, like, Mike and Ike's in the left, and I'm fucking pumped. Here we go. Not product placement. And the movie starts out, and the movie, I even remember as a kid, the movie's beginning, like, really struck me weird, because it's, like, South America or something, and it's like this guy being like, "We're in South America, looking for the ancient Pokemon, Mew, and it eluded us, but we found it." And I was like, what? Where's Ash? Where's Pikachu? I was mad, right? It cuts forward a little bit, and then they don't see Mew, but they get traces of him, and they make Mewtwo, which is this super-powered, like, creation, kind of weird morphic looking version of Mew, but he's like super smart, right? And he can talk, because Pokemon can't talk, for those of you that don't know. Like you don't know. You all know what we're talking about. Mewtwo can talk to Pokemon. So Giovanni, the head of Team Rocket, an evil organization bent on using Pokemon as slaves, bad, Giovanni captures Mewtwo, and he's like super powered now. Like, he's way dominant. He's able to wreck people with Mewtwo alone. And eventually, Mewtwo's like, "I'm better than this." So Mewtwo, like, fucking leaves, right? That's all we hear from that. Cut to Ash and Misty and Brock, and they're just chilling on this, like, beautiful area. And this douchebag shows up. I don't know how he finds him. Like, he goes out of his way to go find him. He's like, "Hey, Pokemon battle." And Ash is like, "Whatever, let's do it." Another new Pokemon shows up. I gotta point this out, because this also blew my fucking mind. Another Pokemon shows up that's new. It's this, like, elephant-looking one, and it can roll. So Ash beats him, whatever. But the whole time that this thing's going on, we're getting, like, this really cool, revved-up version of the main theme and everything, and it's really nice, and, like, it sounds, I don't know if it's in sync, but it kind of sounds like it, and it's, like, really legit. And all of a sudden, like, they get this, the battle ends, credits end, and, like, Ash gets an invitation that's like, "Hey, dude, come hang out at this mansion. We're only calling out the best." So Ash is like, "Sweet, let's go." So they get to the water's edge, because it's a mansion on the mountain, right? And, like, there's a big storm coming in, and everyone's like, "Oh, we can't do it, blah, blah, blah. Boats aren't going to take you out there." So everyone's like, "Well, we got to get out there with our Pokemon. We got to use our slaves to get us out there," right? So everyone's using their Pokemon, and Ash and Misty get on a boat with Team Rocket, and there's a really weird reference to the Minnesota Vikings. I wish I was kidding, but there's, like, this joke where it's like, "Vikings? I thought they only lived in Minnesota." No one cares.
I'm sure that was in the original translation.
Oh, yeah. Japanese people were definitely like, "Oh, yeah, Minnesota Vikings, my favorite." So they get to the island, and, like, there's only 4 of them, right? Yeah, there's 4 of them. And, like, they're hanging out, and there's, like, this Nurse Joy there, and she's, like, weird and monotone. And they're like, "Oh, something's going on. This is really weird. This feels strange." Mewtwo shows up, and Mewtwo's like, "Hey, I'm the best. By the way, I'm stealing all your Pokemon. Fuck you." So he takes everyone's Pokemon and clones them, which is really strange, and then sends out the clones, and the clones fight the regular Pokemon, and, like, Ash is like, "Oh, this is horrible. I don't like this." And Mewtwo's like, "Well, I'm going to kill you, Ash." And Mew shows up, and Mew's like, "Nope, I'm Mew. We're going to fight." And, like, Mew's, like, cutesy and, like, dopey, and he's like an animal. And, like, they fight for a while, and then Ash is like, "This fighting's crazy. We need to stop." So he, like, runs in between Mew and Mewtwo as they shoot, I don't know, fire blasts at each other. And, like, Ash is, like, dead. And he turns into stone, and he, like, hits the ground, and everyone's like, "Oh, no, Ash is dead." But no, then all the Pokemon start crying. And all the tears, like, go into Ash, who is no longer a stone. Now he's alive again. I don't know.
Clearly, they were all injected with Soft from Final Fantasy, which cures petrification.
Oh, yeah. Very much so. Yeah.
That was in the liner notes.
Yeah. So Mewtwo's like, "I see. It's not..." Oh, what is this line? Because this line is really good. "It's not the circumstances of one's birth that set who you are. It's the choices and actions you make that determine your character." And it's like, that's a super deep line for a Pokemon movie. That's the closing line to Citizen Kane.
It's not who you are underneath, but what you do that defines you.
Right. So Mewtwo flies off with all the clones, and Ash is like, "Well, that was great." And the credits roll. And that's the movie. But as a kid, I, like, loved it. But certain things, like, really stuck out to me. Like, there's weird mistakes that are, like, really noticeable.
Like animation mistakes, or
kind of, yeah. Like, there's a lot of weird ones where, like, Ash will be, because it's of course it's translated from Japanese, and
right, it's adapted. And
Japanese sentences take longer to get out than English sentences sometimes. So there's a couple times where like Ash will laugh after he says something, but it clearly looks like it's finishing a sentence. I don't know. It seems kind of cheap. Another weird thing
Are you saying they were just trying to make money off this movie,
No,
Eric?
absolutely not. This was made for the fans. The other weird thing is just like weird just fan errors. Like, alright, this is going to get really nerdy for a second, but it's okay because it's Pokemon and I don't give a shit. One of the dudes is like, hey, I got here real easily because look at all my water Pokemon. He clearly has a guy that's not a water Pokemon. Wrong. And that's like a smaller one. That's like if you're a really big fan, you'll catch that one. But there's two blatant ones that even if you're like a minor fan, you'll catch them. This one dude...
You'll Ash catch him?
You'll Ash catch him, yeah. It's great. This one dude's like, getting here was easy. I flew on my Pidgeotto. It's a Pidgeot. Get your fucking facts straight.
What a loser.
I know. This dork over here.
Such a scrub.
Yeah, get out of here. How many badges you got? Like 2?
Such a poser.
The Pewter City gym and the Cerulean gym? Get out of here. And then the final one is they look at a picture of a Scyther and they're like, oh, it's an Alakazam.
Well, even I know that.
No. Like, it's weird to me. Like, it struck me as, I kind of want to go and listen to the Japanese version and see if they get it right in that.
They probably do. They probably just pick something.
But this is, it can't be that hard. They just look shit up.
Did you buy a ticket to it?
I did.
Then they don't give a shit.
I did buy a ticket to it. I only saw it once, though. I will admit that. I know a lot of people go and see stuff like multiple times and like it.
Yeah.
I only saw it once.
And it came out like right at the tail end of me liking Pokemon. So this was kind of like, because I'm a little bit older than you.
Yeah.
And I was super into Pokemon for like a year. And this movie came out like roughly a year, to the States anyway, like after Pokemon became big. And I've never seen the movie. Like I remember specifically not going to see it.
Yeah, it was really big when it came out. Like, it was a huge, huge deal. Digimon, the movie, came out like 3 or 4 years later, and like the hype was so small compared to it. Pokemon just like ruled the world at that point already.
Yes, it did.
And like a movie coming out was an easy option for it, and it doesn't hold up.
They made buku bucks.
They did,
and that's all they care about.
It's okay. It's like it's got its problems. Like the whole love cures Ash is kind of bullshit, but. You get to see Pikachu electrocute something, and you get to see Ash's Charizard brutally fight another Charizard and get slammed into the ground. There's several moments in this movie where I know it's they're doing this on purpose. There's several moments in the movie where you're like, this is animal cruelty. Like, this is horrifying. It kind of like pulled the show into the spotlight of like, hey, PETA might be right about this show.
Nice.
But overall, I think if you're like a big enough fan, I think it's good. It's better than all the shit that they've come out with afterwards.
It's no worse than an episode of the Pokemon television series.
In fact, I'd say it's better.
Okay.
It's got a little bit more writing. It's got a little bit more mystery to it, but it still has all the things that you like from the episode.
Cool. Right on. Well, the last movie that I want to talk about today is a film that I watched all the time when I was a kid, and just watched again yesterday for the first time in many, many moons. It is the 1981 comic book hero movie.
You're already laughing through this.
Oh, man. The 1981 movie Condor Man. Condor Man is a comic book character.
I hope so.
Who wears a giant Birdman suit. Apparently Birdman is another theme of the episode from my movies today.
Does it look like the suit from that kid that dies in Kick-Ass?
No. It looks... I'll show you a picture later.
Does it look more like a bird?
It looks more like a bird, yeah.
Like Hawk Girl?
Yeah, kind of, but not like it looks cheesy. Like it
Okay.
looks like a suit. It's not armor or anything like that. Damn. Now, Condor Man's mother might be dead. They don't actually establish in the movie if his parents are living or not yet, or no longer with us.
If they're not shown or he doesn't call them, they're dead.
Okay, well then they're definitely dead.
Okay. Ash's mom is not dead.
Per your rules, they're dead. So Condor Man is a movie about a comic book artist named Woody, and Woody something, I don't remember his last name.
Allen?
Does not matter. It's not Woody Allen.
It's Woody.
It's Woody. He is starting a new comic book called Condor Man, which is a hero who flies around in a bird suit and saves people or whatever. He is in Paris because he's trying to get some inspiration for his character, and his rule is if something can't be done in real life, he won't have one of his characters do it in his comic books. And his reasoning is kids will know if he makes stuff up. So he's in
What?
so he's in Paris with his friend Harry. Harry lives in Paris and works for the CIA.
Okay.
Okay, so Harry goes to work and talks to his boss, and his boss is like, "We have to do this mission to deliver these papers to Istanbul, and we need
Not
it."
Constantinople.
Right, not Constantinople. It was, but that's an issue for the Turks.
Yes. I was waiting for it. You have to finish the reference.
So his boss is like, we need to recruit a civilian to go on this mission to deliver these papers because the other member of the other organization has requested a civilian deliver them. So Harry calls Woody and he's like, "Hey, do you want to deliver these papers for me?" I don't know why the CIA is like trusting this mission to some random civilian. That's a big plot hole in the movie, but whatever. So he gives the papers to Woody. Woody gets on a train, goes to Istanbul, and he's in this restaurant, and he's to give these papers to this other agent who turns out to be Natalia. Not from GoldenEye.
Okay. Is it a crossover? Because it's a really good crossover.
It is not. So Natalia is like this really good-looking, like Russian agent.
Catherine Zeta-Jones.
It's not Catherine Zeta-Jones. Catherine Zeta-Jones is probably like 7 when this movie came out.
I don't care. Put her in that role. She'll do it.
She probably would have been more convincing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Woody instantly like falls in love with this woman. He's like, "Oh my gosh." So she's like, "Oh no, there's 3 guys in suits here to capture me. We have to go. I'm in danger." And Woody's like, "Oh, don't worry. I've got this. I'm a famous secret agent." She's like, "I thought you were a civilian." He's like, "No, I go by the code name Condor Man." See, get it?
Does he get shot immediately?
Almost. So he gets in a fight with the 3 suits, and like it's very like this movie is basically Pink Panther meets James Bond because he constantly is like stumbling his way through all of these fights, and like he never gets hurt or never gets killed, even though he's clearly untrained. So they get away. The main bad guy in the movie, his name is Krakow, and Krakow.
Okay.
He's like, "How did this agent defeat 3 of my men? We have to figure out what's going on." So he calls up his main henchman, Morovich. And Morovich is basically like Jaws from James Bond.
Okay.
But instead of having metal teeth, he has a metal eye. One of his eyeballs is made of metal.
Does it work?
I have no idea.
It's not like a computer eye. Where
His
like
mom is definitely dead, but
Fantastic.
I don't know if his eyeball works. Anyway, so the mission is complete, and then Woody goes back to Paris. Harry goes into the office and his boss is like, "We have to find this Condor Man agent. Do you know who Condor Man is?" And Harry's like, "Yeah, he's a comic book character. What are you talking about?" He's like, "We have to find this Condor Man because the Bear, which is Natalia's code name, wants to defect from her agency and come to the U.S.
Why is she a bear?
But I don't know. But she specifically requests the agent Condor Man bring her in." And Harry goes, "I think I might know who Condor Man is." So they want Woody to go on another mission to retrieve the bear. And he's like, "I don't want to do it." But then the boss is like, "Well, the bear is actually this girl named Natalia who you've met." And he goes, "Oh, well then I'll definitely do it."
Is there like a comic reliever who's like, "I don't want to do anything with no bear"?
But he basically, yeah, he's like, "Look, I don't want to do anything with somebody named the Bear. I'm scared. I am not an agent. I am not
Are you
trained."
sure this isn't Woody Allen?
It's not Woody
He's
Allen.
like, "I gotta get back in right any hole."
But the main character kind of resembles Woody Allen a little bit and like kind of has that personality.
Condor Man, that's written by Woody Allen.
Right. So he goes to, I think it's like Yugoslavia or whatever, to get the bear, Natalia. Then the rest of the movie is a series of like them trying to escape. But Woody only agrees to do the mission if the CIA will fund the mission in the way that he wants to do it.
Okay.
Because he wants to write a comic book based on the real life events.
Because he's gonna do it in real life.
Right. So the CIA gives him like all this James Bond shit. Like they give him this like Condor Man car. So Woody and Natalia pose as gypsies to get out of the country, and they're driving in like this really rickety like truck. And then when Morovich and his like KGB, I don't know, speed racer squad come out to chase them down all these like huge, curvy roads on cliff sides, Woody like clicks his button and then outshoots the Condor Man car from below like the dumb truck, and it's like yellow and has like a condor painted on it.
Nice.
And it has all this James Bond like flamethrowers and missile launchers and
Oil
all this crap.
and...
Yeah, exactly. They take it. He takes out all of Morovich's guys except Morovich himself, who goes back to Krakow, and Krakow is like, "How is this happening? I'm mad." Then they figure out that, oh, this Condor Man is this comic book artist.
Right.
So they're reading his comic books to determine what his next move is going to be. So Woody and Natalia, they get arrested in like Italy, put in jail, and then Harry shows up in disguise and as like an Italian police officer, takes them out of jail, and so they escape. And then Morovich catches up to them, and then there's another chase scene. Eventually, Natalia gets captured again by Krakow and Morovich, and Woody and Harry get taken down for the count. Like, they get incapacitated. Woody and Harry concoct this plan to where they're going to disguise themselves as Arab businessmen, down to like they have like the white robes and the hoods and like the sunglasses. Like, it's super stereotypical. They even have like brown face. This movie was produced by Disney, by the way.
Of course it was.
So they go to the mansion where Natalia is being held, posing as the Arab businessman, and they set off a distraction. Woody grabs Natalia and they go up to the rooftop, and all of the bad guys are behind them. And she goes, "What are we going to do?" And he goes, "I'll show you what we're going to do." And he takes off the robe, and he has this Condor Man outfit with the giant wings that extend. And so they fly off the roof down to the docks where Harry's waiting, and they get into the Condor Man boat.
Fantastic.
And the movie ends on a boat chase where they're driving out into the water. Krakow and Morovich's men are chasing after them, and like the classic, like all the boats are black and they're shooting like rockets and stuff. The Condor Man boat has a laser gun that's shooting.
Sure.
And it's funny because they like painstakingly show some shots to try to show you like, oh, nobody's dying. Like, the ships are blowing up, but like the guys are jumping out. But then there's sometimes where like he just shoots the laser and the ships just like explode. Like, well, they're definitely dead.
No, they're fine. They just jumped in the water.
So at the very end, the Condor Man boat gets to like a helicopter that's waiting for them. And they go through like 4 countries throughout this movie. I don't know why they don't just send a plane to like Yugoslavia at the very beginning to get them out of here.
Right.
Whatever. They have to like go globe hopping. So they're getting to the helicopter to escape. Morovich and Krakow are on like the final boat driving towards them, and Krakow is like, "We have to abandon the mission. Like, we've lost them." And Morovich is like, "No, I'm going to get them." Krakow jumps out into the water. Morovich like tries to suicide into them, but they get lifted to the helicopter quickly, and then of course Morovich crashes into a wall and blows up. And then so back
Wile
in
Coyote style.
Yeah, exactly. So back in the United States, they go to Los Angeles. They go to a Dodgers game.
Ooh.
Where Woody's like, "I'm glad that you're here, Natalia," and Harry's like, "Oh, you two kids." Then you see the Goodyear blimp, and it has this message, and it says like, "Welcome to America, Natalia." And she's like, "Oh, this is such a great gift. Thank you guys so much." Well, in the blimp is the CIA boss and another CIA guy. The CIA boss is like, "He's just a comic book artist. Like, what's he gonna do? We shouldn't have him do this next mission." And the other guy's like, "Nope, he's gonna do this mission. He got the girl out." And then so they like have this little walkie-talkie down to Harry, and then Harry's like, "Okay, I got it." And he leans down to Woody and he goes, "Hey, Woody, what do you think about taking Condor Man to," and then like whispers in his ear, and then the camera like freeze frames, and then it's like, "Condor Man," and that's the end of the movie.
Oh, it doesn't do that.
So it's like,
it doesn't do the born the
no,
like
nope.
just that over and over again.
Yeah. So it sets up for a sequel that obviously
That
never happened. Yeah. So it's funny because in this movie, Woody gets inspired by Natalia to create a new character named Laser Lady.
Ooh.
So there's this one point where they're in like this like town of this like mountain German town or whatever, and all of the kids have the Laser Lady comics and they recognize her. And that's when she figures out that Woody is a comic book artist and not a secret agent. But there's no like conflict. There's no cliched like,
she's like,
"You
okay.
lied to me." She's basically just like,
there's no lie reveal scene.
Right. She's basically just like, "You saved my life. It's okay." Which I kind of like that part about the movie.
Yeah, it's a more realistic thing instead of the fucking lie reveal scene.
Yeah. But like I said earlier, this movie's basically just like the Pink Panther meets James Bond with a little bit of superhero stuff thrown in.
Sure.
It's super cheesy, but I
sounds
really,
like it.
really loved watching it again. So, in another theme for the movies that I did today, this is also available on YouTube to watch for
Jeez.
free.
Someone's a freeloader.
Yeah, I don't know how long that'll be up there though, because that one's a Disney
Especially for
movie.
this.
Yeah. This is gonna get 1 million views.
Disney's gonna hear this and go, "Oh, thank you guys."
Right.
And now we're hired by Disney.
It's funny because it's hard to get this movie on DVD. I've actually looked for it, and it's on Amazon, but it's like $30
Jeez.
for the DVD. Yeah, they haven't produced it since like 2009 or something like that.
Is there a reason for that?
Because nobody wants to watch this movie. All right, so this has been some of our favorite movies from our childhood.
Yeah, there's like 20 more that we
Yeah.
can easily talk
We'll
about.
probably revisit this topic someday.
Part 2.
So hopefully you enjoyed us talking about our favorite childhood movies. If you did enjoy it, let us know on social media. You can find us at POP RANT RADIO at Facebook, Twitter, and Gmail. Let us know, what are some of your favorite movies from your childhood? Do they hold up? Do they not hold up? What do you think?
Do you like ours?
Do you like ours? Probably nobody's ever seen my 3 movies.
What's your favorite Pokemon?
What is your favorite Pokemon?
If it's Pikachu, go kill yourself.
Squirtle all the way, baby.
Starmie.
We'd like to thank everyone for listening. We'd also like to thank Major for the theme song,
Thank you, sir.
as always, every week. And other than that, do you have anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Cool. So as always, thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.